If you're thinking about moving to GitHub, you likely have some existing data that you want to bring with you, so your team can hit the ground running. Well, you're in luck because we've got tools and guidance to help you to adopt GitHub and to make your migration and setup process as quick and painless as possible, no matter how big your organization is. So I'm going to assume you understand the concept of a migration, moving your existing work from one place to another. However, there are different ways that you can make that transition. Each way will have pros and cons, which will differ based upon your circumstances and exact set of requirements. Now, when migrating to GitHub, you can think of 3 different ways to move your existing work from place A, the source, to GitHub, the destination. First, a source snapshot. This method migrates the current state of your code as it is today, but doesn't include any of the revision history. You don't typically need in-depth specialized tools for these types of migrations and can migrate from other version control systems or code that may not be version controlled yet. Second, source and history. This method migrates the current state of your code and its revision history. This is possible if you've already been tracking your changes in Git or another version control system where you can convert the history into Git before the migration. And finally, source history and metadata. This is the most complex of the migration options and requires specialist tools which are not available for all migration paths. In this scenario, the current state of your code, its revision history, and additional collaborative items such as work items or issues and pull requests, and potentially some configuration settings can be migrated. However, this option is entirely dependent on the migration tooling. In other words, how rich or high fidelity its capabilities are, and whether the migration source is supported. Fortunately, we've been working on some tools to help accelerate your migration, so you can focus on the important part, enabling your teams to be productive and focusing on building software. So check out this link to find the latest about GitHub Enterprise Importer, our self-service migration tool, which supports a variety of source platforms migrating into GitHub. Alternatively, our GitHub Expert Services team may be able to help you in migrating from additional source platforms with their extensive experience in migrating customers to GitHub. But before we even start talking technology and migration options, it's important that you first take stock of what's currently available in your environment. After all, failing to plan is planning to fail. So here are a few tips so that you can make your migration to GitHub a success. Start with a thorough audit of your repositories so you know exactly what you need to migrate. You can take the opportunity at this point to identify inactive repositories that you might want to archive and not bring across. You may find that some of your initial assumptions were too high, so maybe you can opt for a simpler migration. Ensure you have clearly documented the results of that audit and are tracking the results in some way, whether that is using GitHub issues and GitHub projects, a third-party project management tool, or a spreadsheet. Run a pilot migration with a few repositories and teams, rather than going straight to a big bang migration. This lets you figure out how things work, build confidence, and identify any important gaps before you try to migrate everyone. We know in technology that a large percentage of issues typically stem from people or process, rather than the technology itself. So make sure that you have clearly defined your migration plan, including any pre- and post-migration steps. Make sure you run a test migration of every repository before you do your final production migration. That will give you confidence that everything will work on the big day. We're excited that you've decided to take your journey with GitHub and can't wait to see what you do next. So let's build from here, together.